Hey, what's up guys? Alex here with a new video, and today we're taking a look at CFexpress Type A cards and answering the question, are they worth it? If you're new to my channel, I am a portrait photographer based out of Miami, Florida, and I primarily shoot with Sony and Leica. For the rest of this video, I'm going to go ahead and call these cards Type A cards because if not, it's a pretty big mouthful. But Sony introduced these Type A cards a few years back with their cameras, and this card is actually really cool because it's backwards compatible with SD cards, which means on Sony's latest bodies you can use either an SD card or a Type A card, depending on what you have available. Type A cards are significantly faster, but significantly more expensive, so I've never used them. Lexar happened to reach out to me a few weeks ago and asked me if I'd be interested in reviewing their Type A card, and of course I said yes. Their 160 gigabyte card I have here retails for $189, which is still pretty pricey. But when you compare it to Sony's 160 gigabyte card, that one retails for $350, almost double. It's a very expensive card. And while using it, let me tell you, it is very, very fast. But is it worth it? So some camera bodies by Sony require a Type A card to unlock certain features or certain codecs with video. 4K 120 at a high bitrate, for example. I think certain burst rates without hitting a buffer is also an example why you would need a faster card. And I asked myself, is it worth it? And does this card really change your experience? Now, I'm shooting with an FX3 right now, and like I mentioned, with the FX3, having this card allows you to record at a higher bitrate, 4K 120, and essentially you have no limitations with what the camera is able to provide. I also shoot with a Sony a7R5, a 61 megapixel sensor with pretty big files. And that is where I primarily use this card. And let me tell you, I didn't think I needed it. As a matter of fact, I kind of don't need it. It's more of a want and like, but it completely changed my experience. So the Sony a7R5 is an incredible camera. It's, I think, the best hybrid camera out in the market, the best autofocus. It is one of the fastest cameras, period. And when you add a Type A card to the mix, it just solidifies the speed monster that this camera is. You really have no limitations. What I mean by that is the buffer. So like I mentioned before, I have been using SD cards before I use a Type A card. I use primarily Sony's Tough cards, which are very fast cards. And I switched over to using Lexar cards recently, which are also very fast cards. So I wanted to do a quick little test here in the studio to show you the difference in buffer speed and how fast the camera clears with a Type A card versus an SD card. So here, let me go ahead and show you with a Type A card. I'm going to hold down the shutter for 5 seconds, and you're going to see that after the 5 seconds are up, there is no images left in the buffer and it's already been written to the card. So let me go ahead and play that so you can see it. Boom, you can see how fast that was. Like I mentioned, there was no images left in the buffer, and essentially as soon as I was done with the shutter, all the images were written to the card. Now, using an SD card, in this example, I'm using a Lexar 512 gigabyte card, which retails for around 160 bucks. So $30 cheaper than this Type A card, double the space. Let's take a look at how it does holding it down for 5 seconds and how fast it clears the buffer. So as you can see, it definitely took a lot longer for the images to clear the buffer in the camera and write to the card. Now that's the main benefit here of shooting with Type A cards with your a7R5 or any photo-centric camera. So then the question becomes, is it needed and should you shell out the extra cash for these types of cards? And reality is, if you're not shooting sports or you're not shooting anything with a continuous shutter, you probably don't need these cards. Or if you're not shooting with an FX3 or a cinema camera that requires the fastest speeds to use the best codecs, again, you probably don't need these cards. But let me tell you, once you use these cards, going back just feels slow. I've been spoiled by the speed of this card and how just it makes the camera a complete package. Like I mentioned before, the a7R5 is already a fast camera. I've never complained about the autofocus. I've never complained about anything about that camera. And I had gotten used to the buffer when I shoot in a high burst rate. But after using the Type A cards, now it's a well-rounded package where everything is lightning fast and it truly feels like a camera from the future. I really started noticing the difference when I started using the Sony a7CR, and that camera only has an SD card slot. And that's where I started seeing the buffer, and I kind of started feeling like, hey, why does this camera feel like it's not as fast as the A7R5? And it was essentially every time I took a burst photo, I was buffering. Not the biggest difference. Is it worth the extra cash? Really up to you, but I wanted to make this video showcasing both cards. Now, you might also make the argument that the Type A card might be more durable than the SD card. I don't know if it's been out long enough to actually showcase that, or I don't know the technology behind it to actually make that statement. If it is, let me know in the comments below, because if it is more durable and it's been proven to be more durable, then it's definitely worth the extra cash. But as a whole, I wanted to make this video to show you both cards and have you decide if it's worth adding that extra speed to your camera. But as always, guys, let me know down in the comments below what you think. If you have a Sony camera, are you using CFexpress Type A cards? Are you excited that they're finally third-party manufacturers making cheaper cards and you don't have to rely just on Sony's really, really expensive cards? Let me know down below. Hit the like button, and I will see you on the next one. Have a good one, guys. Peace.